Did you ever had that eerie feeling that someone or something was watching you? You're not alone. Before we uncover the terrifying truth, like this video and comment your location. Let's step into the shadows together. The trip was supposed to take 47 minutes. I've been driving for 3 hours now, and the GPS still says 47 minutes remaining. It started like any other Friday night in San Antonio. I just finished my shift at the Riverwalk restaurant where I worked, and my car was in the shop. Again. Texas summer heat isn't kind to old radiators. I called an Uber around 11:30 p.m., desperate to get home to my apartment near Fort Sam Houston. The app showed my driver was Marcus, 4.9 stars, driving a black 2019 Honda Civic. 7 minutes away, nothing unusual there. I stood under the yellow glow of the restaurant's awning, watching tourists stumble past in their cowboy boots and oversized sombreros. A light breeze carried the scent of cilantro and grilled meat from the nearby Mexican restaurants, mixed with the musty smell of the river. When the Honda pulled up, I double-checked the license plate. Always do, working late nights like this. Everything matched. Marcus looked exactly like his profile picture. Mid-40s, clean cut, wearing a polo shirt. He gave me a friendly nod as I got in. "Long night?" he asked, pulling away from the curb. "Yeah, tourist season's brutal," I replied, settling into the back seat. The car was immaculate, with that fresh, clean smell that almost burns your nostrils. The first red flag was so subtle I almost missed it. As we turned onto I-35, I noticed Marcus had his GPS running on 2 phones, one mounted on the dashboard, one sitting in the cup holder. Same route displayed on both. Weird, but not exactly horror movie material. Maybe one was a backup. "Just in case one loses signal," he said, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. I hadn't asked, but he answered anyway. "Gets spotty out here sometimes." That should have been my second red flag. There's nothing spotty about cell service in central San Antonio. But when you're tired after a double shift, your brain makes excuses for these things. We took the exit for Loop 410, which was normal. But instead of staying on it, Marcus turned onto Highway 90. "Sorry," I said, leaning forward. "My place is off Fort Sam Houston Boulevard. We needed to stay on 410 inches. Marcus nodded, still smiling in the mirror. "Just avoiding an accident up ahead. App's rerouting us." He held up one of the phones, but I couldn't see the screen clearly. That's when I checked my own Uber app. The route showed us still on 410, not Highway 90, and the arrival time, 47 minutes. We'd been driving for at least 15 minutes, but it still said 47 minutes. I refreshed the app, 47 minutes. "Hey, I think something's wrong with the app," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Maybe we should double-check the route?" Marcus's smile didn't waver. "Signal's getting spotty," he said. Both his phones were dark now. "Don't worry, I know a shortcut." The buildings were thinning out, replaced by stretches of dark field and the occasional lonely gas station. Highway 90 stretched ahead like a black ribbon, our headlights the only movement in sight. The dashboard clock read 12:17 a.m. I pulled up Google Maps, but it wouldn't load. No signal. I tried calling 911. Nothing. That's when I noticed something else. Every time we passed a mile marker, it said we were on Highway 90. But every single marker showed the exact same mile number, 47. "Something wrong?" Marcus asked. His voice sounded different now, hollow, like it was coming from somewhere much further away than the front seat. I pressed myself against the door, hand on the handle. "I think there's been a mistake. I'd like to get out here, please." He chuckled, but the sound had no warmth. "Nobody gets out at mile 47. Not anymore." The dashboard clock now read 12:17 a.m. Still, I watched it for a full minute. The numbers didn't change. My phone showed the same, 12:17 a.m., 47 minutes to arrival. "What is this?" My voice cracked. "What's happening?" Marcus's eyes met mine in the mirror again. They looked different now, completely black, like empty sockets. "Did you know that in 1947, there was a mass disappearance along this stretch of Highway 90? 47 people vanished in one night. They found their cars empty, engines running, phones showing the same time, 12:17 a.m. I lunged for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. The child lock light blinked mockingly. Through the window, I could see we were passing another mile marker, Mile 47. The clock still read 12:17 a.m. "Don't worry," Marcus said, his voice now sounding like static. "The trip will only take 47 more minutes. It always does. I'm recording this on my phone, hoping someone finds it. The Notes app still works, even though nothing else does. We've been driving for 3 hours now. Every mile marker says 47. Every time I check the Uber app, it says 47 minutes remaining. Marcus isn't Marcus anymore. Sometimes when I look at the rearview mirror, there's no one in the driver's seat at all. But we keep driving. The clock hasn't moved from 12:17 a.m. If you're reading this, and you take an Uber in San Antonio, check your route. If they try to take Highway 90, get out, check the mile markers, and whatever you do, don't take any rides that are estimated at 47 minutes. Because I'm starting to understand now, this isn't just a highway, it's a loop. And we're not the only car out here. I see other headlights sometimes, other Ubers driving in endless circles. All of us stuck here. All of us at mile 47. All of us 47 minutes from home, forever. Would you have noticed the red flags sooner? How many rides have you taken where you didn't pay attention to the route? I gave my driver 5 stars that night. The next morning, I got a notification thanking me for rating a trip that never existed. Living in Plano's sprawling suburbs means you're basically required to own a car. But after 3 glasses of wine at my friend's house in Legacy West, I did the responsible thing and called an Uber. It was a quiet Tuesday night in March, the air thick with the scent of Texas mountain laurel, that grape soda smell that means spring is coming. The app matched me with Sarah, driving a white Tesla Model 3. 5-star rating, 3 years of experience, 2,847 trips completed. The profile photo showed a smiling woman in her 30s with shoulder-length blonde hair. I remember these details because I've spent months trying to prove she existed. When the Tesla pulled up, everything matched. The car, the plate, the driver. Sarah even had on the same blue blouse from her profile photo. The car was silent, of course, being electric, but something about that silence felt wrong, like the quiet before a storm hits. "Heading home?" Sarah asked as I slid into the back seat. Her voice had a slight Houston twang. "Yeah, over by Parker Road," I said, double-checking that the address was correct in the app. The Tesla's interior was spotless, with that new car smell that's almost too clean. The dashboard display showed our route in crisp blue lines, estimating 18 minutes to my house. Everything seemed normal, except I couldn't see Sarah in the reflection of the rearview mirror. I blinked hard, thinking it was just the wine playing tricks. But no, I could see the mirror clearly, could see the back window through it. But where Sarah should have been, there was just an empty driver's seat. Yet when I looked directly at her, she was there, hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, blonde hair catching the streetlights as we drove. I tried to steady my breathing. "You're just tired, had too much wine, everything's fine." "You must meet interesting people driving for Uber," I said, trying to sound casual while fumbling with my phone's camera. "Maybe if I took a picture." "Oh yes," Sarah replied. "Everyone has a story, some better than others." She glanced at me in the mirror, but again, no reflection. "What's yours?" The photos I tried to take came out wrong. In each one, the driver's seat was empty. But Sarah was right there. I could see her, could hear her humming softly to herself. We turned onto Legacy Drive, the massive parking lots of corporate headquarters stretching into darkness on either side. The dashboard now showed 18 minutes remaining, exactly what it had shown when we started. I refreshed the app. 18 minutes. "How long have you been driving tonight?" I asked, voice shaking slightly. Sarah's laugh sounded like static. "Oh, time is funny in this job. Sometimes it feels like I've been driving forever." She turned to look at me, her whole body turning, not just her head. The car didn't swerve. "Sometimes it feels like I never started at all." The dashboard still said 18 minutes, but we were passing buildings I didn't recognize. The corporate logos were wrong, companies that had gone bankrupt years ago, names that didn't exist. "I think I'd like to get out here," I said, reaching for the door handle. "Your destination is 18 minutes away," Sarah said. Her voice came from the car's speakers now, not from her body. "It's always 18 minutes away." I looked down at my phone to call 911. The screen showed the Uber app, my ride in progress. The driver's profile photo was mine. The name was mine. 2,847 trips completed. "What's happening?" I whispered. Sarah's answer came from everywhere and nowhere. "You gave your last driver 5 stars, didn't you? Even though she wasn't there, even though the trip never happened, you made her real, just like the passenger before you made me real." The dashboard display flickered, 18 minutes remaining. Sarah's reflection appeared in the mirror finally, but it was my face. My face with her blonde hair, my face with eyes that glowed like Tesla touchscreens. "Don't worry," she said, her voice merging with mine. "You'll get your 5 stars too, and then you can pick up the next passenger, and the next, and the next." I'm still driving. The app says I have a 4.97 rating now, 2,849 trips completed. Each passenger gives me 5 stars, even though I'm not there, even though these trips never happen. Look at your Uber history. Look closely at those 5-star rides you don't quite remember. Check the driver's photos. You might see your own face looking back. How many rides have you rated 5 stars without really looking at the driver? How many trips have you taken that feel like a dream the next day? Check your driver profile. You might already have one, even if you never signed up to drive. I checked the address after I got home. 6,666 Preston Road doesn't exist. It never did, but I have the receipt and the scars to prove I was there. When you work the late shift at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, you get used to weird Uber rides. 3 a.m. pickups, delirious passengers, the occasional drunk who thinks the hospital is their house. But in 7 years of nursing, I'd never experienced anything like that Thursday night in February. My phone was dead. A 12-hour shift in the ER will do that. So I used the hospital's front desk computer to call an Uber. The website looked slightly off, the blue a shade too dark, but I figured it was just the ancient monitor's display. My driver was listed as David, 4.8 stars, driving a charcoal gray Suburban. Estimated pickup, 3 minutes. The Suburban that pulled up matched the description perfectly. David looked exactly like his profile picture. Early 60s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, wearing what looked like medical scrubs. I thought that was odd. Another hospital worker, maybe? "Long shift?" he asked as I climbed in. His voice had that gravelly texture of someone who'd spent decades smoking. "Aren't they all?" I replied, settling into the leather seat. The car smelled like antiseptic. Not unusual for a hospital pickup, but this was stronger, more industrial. Like the smell of the old morgue before they renovated it. I gave him my address in Lake Highlands, but he turned north on Preston Road instead of getting on 75. "Sorry," I said, leaning forward. "You're going the wrong way." David's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. They were an unusual color, so pale blue they looked almost white. "Shortcut," he said. "Construction on 75 tonight. This way's faster." I started to protest, but felt a wave of exhaustion hit me. Maybe he was right. I closed my eyes for what felt like a second. When I opened them, we were in a part of Preston Road I didn't recognize. The modern buildings of North Dallas had given way to old houses, Victorian-style mansions set far back from the road, their windows dark and empty. The streetlights were different too, old gas lamps that cast a sickly yellow glow. "Where are we?" I asked, trying to pull up the route on my phone. The screen remained black. Dead right. "Preston Road," David said. "The old Preston Road, before they built over everything." He smiled, showing too many teeth. "Before they covered up what happened here." The houses were getting older, more decrepit. We passed a mailbox with numbers that made my heart stop. 6660, 6662, 6664. "You see," David continued, "back in 1966, there was a doctor who lived at 6666 Preston Road. Had his practice in the basement. Unofficial practice, you understand, for patients who didn't want records of their visits. Patients who never left." We were slowing down. Through the fog that had suddenly appeared, I could see it. A massive Victorian house, paint black with age, windows like dead eyes. The numbers by the door, 6666. "That's not possible," I whispered. "This part of Preston was demolished decades ago. I've seen the city records." David turned to face me. His scrubs were different now, stained brown with old blood, The fabric rotted. His skin had the waxy sheen I'd seen too many times in the morgue. "Records can be changed," he said. "Bodies can be hidden. But the house remembers. It calls to people like us, people who work with death, people who understand that sometimes patients don't make it home." The car doors locked with a heavy click. "I was that doctor," David said. His face was decaying as I watched, flesh sagging to reveal surgical steel underneath. "And my practice is still open. Always room for one more patient." I yanked at the door handle, but my arms felt heavy. The antiseptic smell was overwhelming now, making my vision blur. "You'll like it here," David's voice came from far away. "All my patients do, and in 50 years, maybe you'll be the one driving." I woke up in my own bed 7 hours later, still in my scrubs. According to my phone, I'd given David 5 stars and a $20 tip. The receipt showed a normal route from the hospital to my apartment, but there are 3 long scars on my arm that weren't there before. Surgical scars, decades old, arranged in a pattern that looks like the number 6. I requested my employment records from Presbyterian Hospital last week. In the staff photos from 1966, there's a doctor I recognize, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. The name tag reads Dr. David Preston, the same face that picked me up that night. I don't take Ubers home from the hospital anymore, but sometimes, on foggy nights, I see a charcoal Suburban idling outside the ER. Through the windshield, I catch glimpses of wire-rimmed glasses, surgical scrubs, and that too wide smile, waiting. Next time you're in North Dallas, drive down Preston Road late at night. Count the house numbers carefully, and if your Uber driver is wearing scrubs, check their name tag first. Have you ever fallen asleep during a ride? Are you sure you woke up in the same place you fell asleep? According to my phone, I've taken 847 Uber rides in Houston. I only remember 846 of them. It's the one I can't remember that keeps me awake at night. I first noticed something was wrong when I was checking my Uber receipts for expense reports. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep, so I take a lot of rides between doctors' offices around Houston's medical center. That January afternoon, I was sitting in my apartment near Rice Village, sorting through emails when I found it. A receipt for a ride I didn't remember taking. January 17th, 2:47 p.m. Driver, Michael Chen, silver Toyota Camry. Starting point, MD Anderson Cancer Center. Destination, 21,300 Northwest Freeway. That's out in Cypress, almost an hour from the medical center. I never go out there. The receipt showed I'd paid $147.82 for the ride. I had given the driver 5 stars and left a comment. "Thanks for helping me find it." Find what? I checked my calendar for January 17th. There was a blank space between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. No appointments, no notes. My Google timeline showed nothing for those hours. It was just empty. I tried contacting Uber support. They confirmed the ride happened, sent me the same receipt I already had. Said the driver reported nothing unusual. That's when the dreams started. Fragments, really. A silver Camry. The endless concrete of Northwest Freeway. An exit sign that didn't match any real exit. A driver whose face I couldn't quite see in the rearview mirror, asking me questions I couldn't quite remember. Have you ever been out this way before? Do you believe in parallel memories? What if I told you this isn't the first time we've had this conversation? Last week, I finally broke down and took another Uber to that address on Northwest Freeway. The spot doesn't exist, just empty fields where the GPS says a building should be. But as we drove past, I saw something that made my blood freeze. A silver Camry, parked in the tall grass. Empty. I made the driver stop. Inside my wallet, behind my credit cards, I found a business card I'd never seen before. Michael Chen, Parallel Memory Recovery. When you're ready to remember, call the same number again. The phone number was my own. I've been going through my phone records obsessively. January 17th shows one outgoing call at 2:46 p.m. to myself. The call lasted exactly 47 minutes. Yesterday, I found something else. In my bathroom mirror, written in condensation that appeared even though I hadn't showered. This is attempt number 847. You're getting closer. Next time, try to remember the pattern. Under it was a series of numbers. 21,000, 300, 12,000, 312,000, 130, 1,203. The numbers keep rearranging themselves when I look away. Sometimes I see other messages in mirrors just for a split second. Wrong memory timeline. Reset required. Passenger consciousness transfer incomplete. My phone just buzzed, a notification from Uber. Your ride with Michael is starting now. But I didn't order a ride. Through my apartment window, I can see a silver Camry pulling up. The driver's face in the window is mine. I think I finally understand. Each ride is an attempt to find the right memory, the right timeline. And when we fail, we become the next driver, searching for the next version of ourselves. I'm going down to meet him, Mr. Whatever. This will be ride number 848. Maybe this time, I'll remember what I'm supposed to find. Have you ever checked your ride history and found a trip you can't remember? Have you ever felt like your driver knew something about you they couldn't possibly know? Check your phone. Are there any calls to your own number that you don't remember making? The address she requested doesn't exist anymore. Hasn't since the flood of 1921. I know, because my great-grandmother was one of the 27 people who died there that night. But every year on September 9th, the ride request comes in, and someone always accepts. I never planned to drive for Uber in Del Rio. It's a small border town 3 hours west of San Antonio, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and most rides are just drunk cowboys needing a lift home from Shinto's bar. But when the Air Force Base downsized and I lost my contracting job, driving seemed like a good way to make ends meet. That's how I found myself online at 11:47 p.m. on September 9th, parked outside the Val Verde County Fairgrounds, waiting for rides. The night was unusually cold for Texas, and a heavy fog had rolled in from the Rio Grande, thick enough to hide the Border Patrol lights that usually painted the horizon. The ride request came in with a distinct chime I'd never heard before, not the usual Uber tone. The passenger's name was listed as Maria G., 5-star rating. The pickup location was the old San Felipe Bridge. Nobody goes to that bridge anymore. The original structure collapsed in the flood of 2021, and the new one was built half a mile downstream. But the app was showing the old location, complete with a faded street view photo that looked straight out of 1920. I should have declined the ride, should have turned off the app and gone home. But the surge pricing was 27.0x. I'd never seen it higher than 3.0x in Del Rio. The fog grew thicker as I drove toward the pickup point, my headlights barely penetrating the white wall ahead. My car's GPS kept rerouting, insisting I was driving into the river, but the Uber app showed I was right on track. She was standing at the edge of where the old bridge should have been, a young woman in a white dress that looked period accurate for the 1920s, her long black hair moving in a wind I couldn't feel. When she got into the back seat, the temperature dropped so low I could see my breath. "Adonde vas?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The app showed no destination, just a spinning loading icon. "A casa," she replied. Her voice sounded like water moving over stones. "La última casa en la calle Washington." I knew that street. The old Washington Street had been wiped out in the 1921 flood. 27 people died when the San Felipe Creek overflowed its banks. My great-grandmother, Maria Guadalupe Garcia, had been one of them. Maria G. In the rearview mirror, the woman's face shifted, becoming more familiar with each passing second. The same high cheekbones, the same beauty mark under her left eye that I'd seen in ancient family photos. "Abuelita," I whispered. She smiled, but her eyes were full of tears. "Has crecido tanto, mi amor, but you shouldn't be here. No one should drive these roads tonight." The fog outside had turned brown, like floodwater. Through my windows, I could see other cars, Model Ts and old Packards, their headlights glowing weakly through the murk. Each one had an Uber sticker in the window, despite being nearly a century old. "Every year," my great-grandmother said, "the waters remember. And every year we try to warn them, but the drivers keep coming. 27 rides, 27 souls." My phone showed the surge pricing clearly now, 27.0x. The water was rising around the car, but it wasn't water anymore. It was faces, hands, entire bodies suspended in the murk, each one staring at their phones, the blue light of rideshare apps reflecting off their drowned features. "Mi pequeña," she said, her hand icy cold on my shoulder. "Turn off the app, break the chain, or next year, you'll be the one calling rides that never end." I slammed the brakes, but the car kept moving. Through the windshield, I could see the destination now. A house underwater, glowing with pale light, its porch full of passengers waiting for rides that would loop endlessly through this one terrible night. My phone buzzed, another ride request. The surge pricing, 28 times I turned off the app. The car stopped. When I looked in the back seat, she was gone. My phone showed no record of the ride, but there was a new photo in my gallery, a faded picture from 1921, showing 27 people in front of the San Felipe Bridge. In the center, my great-grandmother, smiling. Behind her, a line of cars stretching into fog. I deleted my Uber driver account that night, but every September 9th, my phone lights up with that strange chime. The surge pricing gets higher each year, 29.0 times 30.0 times 31.0. Someone always accepts the rides. If you're driving in Del Rio on September 9th and you get a request from Maria G, remember, some passengers aren't trying to get home. They're trying to keep you from joining them. How many times have you driven through fog, not quite sure what was real? How many passengers have shared stories that felt too personal, too familiar? Check your surge pricing carefully. If it's a perfect multiple of 27, turn off your app. Some rides aren't worth any price.